聞こえますか？聞こえますか？よし、どうやら音が入ってるっぽいので、今日はですね、このスタンリー・パラブルをやっていこうと思います。で、これ、日本語に対応してるって聞いたんですけど、もうなってんのかな、これは。エクストラス、オーディオ、これ違うか。あ、これ画面比変えた方がいいのかな？お、なんか伸びた。あ、でもなんかずれたな、画面が。これはもうノーマルのままにしとこうか。はい。まあ、始めてみよう。で、なんかナレーターが指示してくるみたいで、それに従ったりとか、まあ、無視したりとかして進めていくゲームみたいです。
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
おっと、これは英語か。
Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427.
これ字幕がないね、これ。
Employee number 427's job.
ちょっと待ってね。あれ日本語対応しなかったっけな？ちょっと待ってね。調べるわ。なるほど。これあれだ。最新版じゃないから、英語しかできないっぽい。よし、じゃあなんか、雰囲気でやってこう。あ、で、オープニング飛ばしちゃった。最初から行こう。あれなんでこれどうや？
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did
なん
every
か
day,
指示に従って
every
ボタンを
month,
押すだけ
of
の仕事みたい
every
な
year. And although
話だっけ？
others might have considered it soul-winning, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy.
毎日これだけ
And
やる
then
仕
one
事って
day,
やば。
something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened. This
誰もいなくなっちゃ
complete
ったんだ。
isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk.
ちょっと待ってね。ちょっと待って。 リスニングそんな得意じゃないから。字幕ない、字幕。せめて字幕欲しいな。You can change capture the language in Steam. これやってみる？あ、
But Stanley simply couldn't handle the pressure. What if he had to make a decision? What if a crucial outcome fell under his responsibility? He had never been trained for that. No. This couldn't go anywhere except badly. The thing to do now, Stanley thought to himself, is to wait. Nothing will hurt me. Nothing will break me. In here I can be happy forever. I will be happy.
もう部屋から出ないことを決めちゃったみたいな。
Hours passed, then days. Had years gone by? He no longer had the ability to tell. But the one thing he knew for sure, beyond any doubt, was that if he waited long enough, the answers would come. Eventually, someday, they would arrive. Soon, very soon now, this will end. He will be spoken to. He will be told what to do. Now it's just a little bit closer. Now it's even closer. Here it comes.
はい。部屋から出ないエンド。これ。どういうことこれ。閉じちゃったんだ。まあ、部屋閉じておこうか。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
ミーティングルームに行くことを決めたらしい。どこ？どこ？まあ、空いてるドア通れってことなんだろうな。まあ、一回指示に従ってやってみよう。はい。
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
なるほど。左にあるドアに行ったらしい。まあ、左にあるやつ行く？一旦。
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
ボスオフィスに行くってこと？まあ、一旦行く？ブルームクローゼット。はいはい。
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
はい、上の階にボスのオフィスがある。オッケーオッケー。はい。うわ、なんか全然雰囲気違うな。金持ちって感じすんな、ほら。はい。
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845.
2845ね。
But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
ああ、知らないんだ。2845。2845？そっか。まあ、スタンリーは知らないらしいんだけど、俺は知ってるから、打ったろ。
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs,
えい。
trying to yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing.
めっちゃ運良かっ
He
たっ
stepped
ていう扱い
into
にな
the
ったの、これ。
newly opened passageway.
出たろ。こっち？こっちか？こっちか。なんかちょっと怖くね？下。これいいの？まずそうじゃねこれ。
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
ちょっと難しいな、使ってる英単語が。
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
こっちに行くってこと？でもなんかエスケープって書いてあるんだよな。まあ一旦じゃあ指示に従ってやってみるか。はい。しょうがない。
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
自由がない空間で働かされ続けた。はい。
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly?
洗脳されてあの仕事が楽しいと思い込んだのね。
No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
ちょっと何言ってんのかわかんねえや。ファシリティパワー。マインドコントロールサイドル。Awaiting input.
And when at last he found the source of the room's power, he knew it was his duty, his obligation, to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood for.
オフにしたろ。
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him. For it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door.
まあいいだろ、進んでやろ
Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
なんかいい話風。ビートザゲーム。ゲーム倒したってことはあ。なるほどね。じゃあ無視しまくるか。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
一体何があったんだ
Stanley decided to go to the... Oh, please. Are you really just doing this for the achievement? Click a door 5 times. Is that all that you think an achievement is worth? No. I can't just give these merits away for such little effort. A measly 5 clicks. Now suppose you were to click the door 20 times. I would say that's the kind of effort that warrants recognition.
いいだろ、めっちゃやってやるよ。俺。
I have to say, I'm still not feeling the satisfaction of witnessing true effort for a noble cause. Perhaps 50 clicks will do it. Yes, almost certainly 50 clicks.
50, OK。50回やったろ。俺。開け。
No, I'm still not feeling it. I want this achievement to have meant something. It has to be a true reward for valiant effort. I want to see some hustle, Stanley. I want to see commitment, a willingness to go all the way, no matter what the cost. Why don't you go put 20 clicks into door number 417?
417番を探して叩けと。了解。あった。ほら。
Great. Now, go click a few times on door 437.
437。どこあった。あったけどやっぱ従うの尺に触るから別のやつ行こう。くそ、何も反応しねえ。ダメ。じゃあ分かった。いいよ。
Excellent. I think we're getting somewhere. Now, door 415. Let's give it 10 clicks or so.
415、OK。415番を叩きまくったろう。いや、これ誘導されてるな、やっぱり。やるよ。
Now, back to door number 437.
は？なんだこいつ。腹立ってきた。437番で OK？ こいつ絶対あれだろ。
How about you click on, well, I don't know, the copy machine?
コピーマシン。お、なんだ今の。はあ。ダメだ。英語じゃ半分ぐらいしか理解できん。全然わかんねえ。あー、しまっちゃったー。ほい。開かないか。なんだなにこれ。なんか進んだ。なにこれ。まあ一回進むか。あれ、こんな部屋だったっけ？
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
レフトね。じゃあライト行くわ。
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
なるほど、なるほど。エンプロイラウンジに一回行ってみたいなと思ったんだ。
Ah, yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room.
ほうほう。
Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in.
全部飲んだの？
Yes, really, really worth it being here in the room. A room so utterly captivating that even though all your co-workers have mysteriously vanished, here you sit looking at these chairs and some paintings. Really worth it.
ほうほ
At this point, Stanley's obsession with this room bordered on creepy and reflected poorly on his overall personality. It's possible that this is why everyone left.
う。ダメだ、わからん。時間見とこう。
Stanley sat around waiting for more dialogue, but when a long time had passed and there was no more, he decided that the game was trying to send him a message.
なんか少しの時間しかこの部屋にいなかったみたいなこと言ってたから、この部屋に留まってみよう。ほれほれ。あれ、これ見れないんだ。まあ一回進むか。
But at last, he'd had enough of the amazing room and took the first open door on his left to get back to business.
左のドア、ここに入ったらしい。拒否ろ。
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
ワーニング Do not jump from the cargo. Lift while it is in motion. はいはいはいはい。動いてる間乗っちゃいけないよって。ジャンピング。ああ、なるほど。罰金もあるんだ。でも戻れないんだけど。残念ながら。じゃあ乗るしかねえな。
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her.
ほう。
This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself, to put your work aside, to let her back into your life. She's been waiting.
C って誰？ わお。
That's her, Stanley. You need to be the one to do this, to reach out to her. If you can truly place your faith in another, then pick up the phone.
分かった、じゃあ取ってあげよう。ん？
Oh, Stanley, is that you? Hold on, sweetie. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, now, I want you to come in and tell me all about your day.
うわ、怖い。
Gotcha. Oh, come on. Did you actually think you had a loving wife who'd want to commit their life to you? I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here.
ほう、なんか見せてくれるらしい。
This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley.
プレス9 on your keyboard。キーボン押せってこと？押せないが。あ、この PC を押せってこと？
Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that demands nothing of him, and every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature of his existence.
You. はい。
Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing exactly what he's told to do. Now he's pushing a button. Now he's eating lunch. Now he's going home. Now he's coming back to work. One might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life. But in his mind, he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands. It was wonderful, and each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him.
Please press I to watching TV. テレビ見るために I を押せ。
And so he began to fantasize about his own job. First, he imagined that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him terribly.
消えちゃったんだ。Please press I to spend time with the boys. Boys?
So he went
ち
further.
ょっと待っ
He
て。やばい。
imagined that he came to
どうした？
two open doors and that he could go through either. At last,
うわ。
choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold.
Prepare dinner.
As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby. And he called it the Stanley Parable.
タイトル回収。Please press T to tell your kids a story. はいはいはい。
It was such a
Hanashi.
wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time.
Press N to tell your wife you love her. はい。
But there is no answer. How could there possibly be? In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always has. Nothing has changed. The longer he spends here, the more invested he gets, the more he forgets which life is the real one.
T, go to sleep. はい。
And I'm trying to tell him this, that in this world he can never be anything but an observer, that as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself. But he won't listen to me. He won't stop. Here, watch this. Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it.
やっちゃいけないらしい。Press I to be at work in the morning. 拒否ればいいってこと？これを。拒否ります。ボイコットじゃあ。何これ？ You can't jump. もしみは3、we disable でして。ジャンプできねえんだ。やれることないな。一旦愛を押してみていい？押すわ。
You see? Can he just not hear me? How can I tell him in a way that he'll understand that every second he remains here, he's electing to kill himself? How can I get him to see what I see? How can I make him look at himself?
Please press Y to question nothing.
I suppose I can't, not in the way I want him to. But I don't make the rules. I simply play to my intended purpose, the same as Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose. I'll try once more to convey all this to him. I'm compelled to. I must. Perhaps, well, maybe this time he'll see. Maybe this time. And I tried again, and Stanley pushed a button. And I tried again, and Stanley pushed a button. And I tried.
あ、死んだ。だからホラー展開。ホラー展開しなかった。どういうこと？わかんね
え。All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
ミーティングルーム行こう。じゃあ行こうか。これなんだ？
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Wow. Yes, this room. What a beautiful room. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
こっちのドアか。じゃあこっち入ってみようか。
And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track.
進めばいいの？はい。
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
わー、なんかすごいいろいろ書いてあるな。ウォークハーダー、ハードウォーカー。ブラック企業の匂いがするな。You must have all.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
下行こう。やばそう。
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming, he yelled. This is all a dream.
なるほど。
Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground.
うおー、飛んで
Then
る。
he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical star field, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner.
怖い、なんか。
Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And
怖い。
while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the
夢だと思っ
buttons.
てんだ、スタンリー
Please,
はこれを。
it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay. Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I?
スタンリー壊れちゃった。
And everything went black.
スタンリー壊れちゃった。
This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
変わった。
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day. The very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
スタンリー発狂エンドだ、これ。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
まあ、一旦ミーティングルームまで行こうか。
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Hoping he might find coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
一旦オフィス行く。こっち何？エグゼクティブバスルーム。ロバ？なんか開くんだけど。Because the boss knows that what the boss say goes if the boss suffered loss. Then that what the boss choose. ちょっと待って、どういうこと？ちょっと何言ってるのかわかんねえ。エクストリームバスルームス。はいはい。だからなんだって部屋だな。こっちはなんだ？これなんだろう？マジ？来ちゃうんだけど。一旦こっち入って。
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. What could it mean? Stanley wondered aloud to nobody. He began wildly tearing through papers on the boss's desk, pulling books off the shelf, looking behind paintings, desperate for clues to his situation. But his attention was caught by a keypad behind the boss's desk. What could its purpose be? In fact, this keypad guarded the terrible secret that lay buried below his feet. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
運よく開けれました。で、もう一回やろう。このゲーム難しいな。
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
こっち何？エスケープ？怖えけど行くか。
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death. But of course, Stanley thought better of it and realized he simply had too much to live for.
ここで反復横跳びしちゃうか。
Nope. Still on board with death?
怖え、こっちの道今行くか。いや、怖えよ、やっぱ。もうぞ。でも何があるのか気になるの？行くか。ホラーゲームみたいになってきた、なんか。
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track.
いつでも戻るチャンスはあるってこと？なんだ、戻った方がいいんかな、これ。 進むか。
At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
ねこれ。うわー、死んだー。死んだっぽい今のは。あれ来てる。
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. So he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
あー、死ぬんだ。
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
え？なんだと？
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish?
え、どこここ？
When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
ああ、もう始まった瞬間からスターリーは死んでるようなもんじゃないかみたいなこと？なんじゃこりゃ。え、どういうことこれ。1、2、3、ザ・オフィス。メイキングみたいなとこになってんのこれ。ボタンサウンズ。へえ。メインエントランスルーム。おお。へえ。普通に面白いな。メイキングのやつが置いてあるってことでしょ、これ。Narrator's emails。ナレーター E メール。The narrator will the Stanley Parable have effect. ああ、飛んじゃった。What would you do if Stanley enters any other rooms? Will you play the Stanley Parable? Help me like friends. How do you make a JRPG? How do you make the worst game ever? What is the... ああ。へえ。Stanley's office。ほう。あ、ちょっとずつ違うんだ。パソコンがあったりなかったり。1個だったり2個だったりするんだ。へえ。ゲームデザイン。ゲームデザインマークアップ。ほう。これはモニタールームエレベーター。 ああ、置いてあったやつか。カウントダウンルーム。ああ、はいはい。最初に通ったやつだ。
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free.
終わらせるかってこと？終わりで。
Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path.
どういうこと？
Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't let time
死んじゃった。ダメだ。日本語版でやるんだったな、これは。言ってることわかんねえ。これはもう一回始めないといけないやつか。
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
なんか違う。
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
なんか違う。
Stanley went around touching every little thing in the office, but it didn't make a single difference, nor did it advance the story in any way.
あれ、短くされてる。ここの道が。
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
じゃあ左、ちょっと今回全部従っていこうか。あれでも同じだな、この道は。
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
はいはい。開いてる？あれ、開いてたっけ？
The moment he entered his manager's office, Stanley froze in his tracks. Not a living soul anywhere. Could he? Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just let the narrator talk.
ナレーターが喋るより前にやるのよと思ってんじゃん、なんかちょっ
So
と。
he relaxed for a few moments with some calming new age music.
あ、なんか落ち着く音楽かけてくれてる。なんか焦ってるみたいな感じの。焦ってるように思われて。
Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway.
よし、行くぞ。
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
マインドコントロール行くぞ。
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing. This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
ここなんだ。行ったことないな。4。何が4？押す。ポチ。どういうこと？ここ何？ 5。あ、なんか順番通りに押すとかそういうこと？どっかに1、2、3があるんじゃないこれ。あった。1、2、3は？ここ開かない。3どこだ？3どこだ？見当たらないな。3が、あれじゃない？あった。3。で、4。で、5。なんも起こらん。なんも起こらんけど。なんも起こらんか。
And when at last he found the source of the room's power, he knew it was his duty, his obligation, to put an end to this horrible place and to everything it stood for.
オンにしてみよう。
Oh, Stanley, you didn't just activate the controls, did you? After they kept you enslaved all these years, you go and you try to take control of the machine for yourself. Is that what you wanted? Control?
あ、スタンリーが全部支配しようとしてるんだよ。
I applaud your effort, I really do. But you need to understand, there's only so much that machine can do. You were supposed to let it go, turn the controls off, and leave. If you want to throw my story off track, you're going to have to do much better than that. I'm afraid you don't have nearly the power you think you do. For example, and I believe you'll find this pertinent, Stanley suddenly realized he had just initiated the network's emergency
そして
detonation
ここでオ
system.
フを押す。
In the event that this
押せね。
machine is activated without proper DNA identification, nuclear detonators are set to explode, eliminating the entire complex. How long until detonation then? Let's say 2 minutes. Ah, now this is making things a little more fun, isn't it, Stanley? It's your time to shine. You are the star. It's your story now. Shape it to your heart's desires. Oh, this is much better than what I had in mind. What a shame we have so little time left to enjoy it. Mere moments until the bomb goes off. But what precious moments each one of them is. More time to talk about you, about me, where we're going, what all this means. I barely know where to start. What's that? You'd like to know where your co-workers are? A moment of solace before you're obliterated?
どういうこ
All right, I'm in a good mood. You're gonna die anyway. I'll tell you exactly what happened to them. I erased them. I turned off the machine. I set you free. Of course, that was merely in this instance of the story. Sometimes when I tell it, I simply let you sit there in your office forever, pushing buttons endlessly and then dying alone. Other times, I let the office sink into the ground, swallowing everyone inside, or I let it burn to a crisp. I have to say this, though, this version of events has been rather amusing. Watching you try to make sense of everything and take back the control wrested away from you, it's quite rich. I almost hate to see it go. But I'm sure whatever I come up with on the next go around will be even better. My goodness, only 34 seconds left. But I'm enjoying this so much. You know what? To hell with it. I'm going to put some extra time on the clock. Why not? These are precious additional seconds, Stanley. Time doesn't grow on trees. Oh dear me, what's the matter, Stanley? Is it that you have no idea where you're going or what you're supposed to be doing right now? Or did you just assume when you saw that timer that something in this room was capable of turning it off? I mean, look at you. Running from button to button, screen to screen, clicking on every little thing in this room. These numbered buttons, no, these colored ones. Or maybe this big red button, or this door. Everything, anything, something here will save me. Why would you think that, Stanley? That this video game can be beaten? Won? Solved? Do you have any idea what your purpose in this place is? Stanley, you're in for quite a disappointment. But here's a spoiler for you. That timer isn't a catalyst to keep the action moving along. It's just seconds ticking away to your death. You're only still playing instead of watching a cutscene because I want to watch you for every moment that you're powerless. To see you made humble. This is not a challenge. It's a tragedy. You wanted to control this world, that's fine. But I'm going to destroy it first, so you can't. Take a look at the clock, Stanley. That's 30 seconds you have left to struggle. 30 seconds until a big boom and then nothing. No ending here, just you being blown to pieces. Will you cling desperately to your frail life, or will you let it go peacefully? Another choice. Make it count, or don't. It's all the same to me, all a part of the joke. And believe me, I will be laughing at every second of your inevitable life from the moment we fade in until the moment I say, happily ever up.
ボーン。どういうことやったんやろ。というゲームでした。ちょっとよくわからなかった。ダメだ、よくわからなかった。言語が違うだけで、全然内容がわからなかった。ちょっと配信終わったらいろいろ調べてみようと思います。じゃあ今回はこれで。お疲れ様でした。